Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, your go-to source for inside stories, cutting-edge research, and the latest updates in the world of dairy farming. In the 48th episode, we discover if Wisconsin can determine the next president. Will it lean Republican or Democrat? Let's look at what influences Wisconsin's crucial decision. So please grab a glass of milk, sit back, and let's get started with today's episode.
Wisconsin's importance in the 2024 presidential race can't be overstated. It's the battleground everyone's watching, and the stage is set for another dramatic showdown. As America's Dairyland, it's more than just the heart of cheese country. It's a political prize that holds sway with its history of swinging between the major parties. If we win Wisconsin, we win the presidency. Donald Trump, from the prosperous dairy farms that dot its landscape to its pivotal role in previous elections, Wisconsin doesn't just reflect America's agricultural heartland. It embodies the nation's political pulse. As a bellwether for national trends, Wisconsin's choice in the upcoming election could very well decide who leads America.
Wisconsin's political landscape is famously unpredictable, making it a quintessential purple state, with frequent dramatic shifts in party allegiance. Historically, the state has experienced rapid swings from one end of the political spectrum to the other, often reflecting broader national trends even more exaggeratedly. The contrast between rural and urban areas has further accentuated this division recently. The state has seen its share of political legends, from the progressive reforms championed by Robert M. La Follette in the early 20th century to Joseph McCarthy's fervent conservatism in the 1950s. This pattern of alternating political dominance has continued, transforming Wisconsin into a microcosm of American ideological struggles. Recent election results illustrate Wisconsin's status as a swing state. In 2016, Donald Trump won the state's electoral votes by a narrow margin, defeating Hillary Clinton by less than 23,000 votes, 0.77%. Yet 4 years later, Biden emerged victorious, edging out Trump with just under 21,000 votes, 0.63%. These razor-thin margins emphasize the state's pivotal role in national elections, often making it a critical battleground that both parties focus on intensely. As both Democratic and Republican campaigns amplify their efforts to capture Wisconsin's vote in each election cycle, the state remains a fascinating barometer for the nation's divided political climate.
Wisconsin's heart pulses with agriculture. Dairy farming has been a staple for generations, linking people to the land and each other. Yet the state's identity has been reshaped in recent years, mirroring its unpredictable political winds. The agricultural landscape, particularly the dairy sector, significantly colors voter preferences, reflecting deep-seated economic and cultural ties amidst evolving challenges. Once the bedrock of Wisconsin's rural communities, family farms are now quickly disappearing. The USDA's 2022 agricultural census reveals a concerning trend. The number of family-run dairy farms is sharply declining, leaving larger industrialized farms to fill the void. This transition impacts not just agricultural output, but also the fabric of community life. Historically, family farms foster networks of support and sustainability, with profits circulating locally. However, profits funnel elsewhere as more extensive operations dominate, disrupting local economies and detaching communities from their agricultural roots. This decline alters the political landscape. Minor, closely knit communities, once unequivocally shaped by their farming ethos, have been at odds with urban policies. As the distance between rural struggles and urban decision-making widens, disillusionment grows. For many farmers, this sentiment translates into political support for candidates who promise to revitalize agricultural independence and ensure local economic prosperity. Republicans often capitalize on this dissatisfaction by focusing on promises to reduce regulation and support traditional farming practices. However, the industrial shift complicates this narrative as fluctuating tariffs and the globalization of markets affect large-scale and small-scale operations differently. It's a complex dance, maintaining the balance between tradition and modernization, ensuring livelihood while adapting to global demands. Industrialized farming's rise doesn't just shift economic power, it also reshapes community life and voting patterns. As fewer people hold the agricultural reins, political strategies now address varied interests: labor policies, trade agreements, technological investments, and not just the preservation of farmland. Wisconsin, much like its unpredictable political swings, embodies a dual reality. It is both rooted in agricultural heritage and caught in the thrust of industrial advancement. This dynamic and complex scene creates a battleground where voter preferences lean towards candidates who can best promise to navigate these tumultuous waters. As this dance between past and future continues, Wisconsin's agricultural sector remains a potent emblem of its political heart, influencing its direction with every electoral cycle.
Amid the rolling hills of Wisconsin, farmers face formidable economic challenges, shaping the political future of America's Dairyland. Tariffs have cast a shadow over Wisconsin's agricultural heartland, with the Trump administration's tariffs creating a ripple effect that initially hurt farmers reliant on global markets. More broadly, globalization exerts pressure on small farms to boost productivity while cutting costs, often forcing them to rely on more giant corporations for survival. This dependency undermines the traditional autonomy that family farms once enjoyed, eroding economic stability in rural communities. Bankruptcies among Wisconsin's farmers tell a grim story too. For several years, the state has led the nation in farm bankruptcies, underscoring the fragile financial state of many farmers. Tariffs and globalization issues have exacerbated their troubles, pushing some to the brink of financial ruin. This outcome fuels political discontent and feeds into broader electoral dynamics. The impact of these economic strains has profound political implications. Farmers, who once may have leaned Democratic because of historical support for agriculture, are considering Republican promises to bolster the agricultural sector. The allure of a robust national food supply chain resonates with those desperate for relief from financial uncertainty. Conversely, some might still support Democratic candidates, viewing them as a necessary counter to policies they believe harm the agriculture sector, like the Trump tariffs. Despite mixed results, the Biden administration's initiatives to increase competition within agriculture-related industries could appeal to those hoping to see a more competitive playing field that supports smaller farms. Ultimately, the electoral outcome in Wisconsin may hinge on which candidate, Republican or Democrat, can most convincingly promise and deliver economic relief to these embattled farmers. As voters step into the booths, the scales may tip based on their economic realities, making it a critical battleground to watch in the upcoming elections.
The conversion of farmland into housing in Wisconsin due to a housing shortage brings to the forefront a contentious debate impacting voter preferences. On the one hand, the rapid development of farmland into residential areas aims to address the pressing need for housing, especially as the state grapples with a rising population and housing crisis. Supporters of housing development argue that creating more affordable homes is essential for the state's growth and prosperity. They point out that with Wisconsin's median home sales price surging by 153.1%, housing availability must keep pace with demand to ensure that residents can find suitable and affordable living conditions. The Harris Walz campaign, emphasizing the establishment of 3 million new affordable homes across the country, appeals to this segment of the electorate, which believes that housing expansion is necessary for modernizing the state's infrastructure. Conversely, advocates for preserving farmland emphasize the cultural and economic cornerstone that agriculture represents for Wisconsin. The transformation of farmland could mean the erosion of the rural character and agricultural heritage intrinsic to America's Dairyland. For them, supporting farm preservation aligns with maintaining the state's identity and ensuring that agricultural lands continue contributing to the economy and community well-being. The Trump campaign, which leans towards preserving agricultural land, may resonate with voters who believe in sustaining the state's long-standing agricultural legacy. As voters contemplate the trade-offs between farmland preservation and housing development, their choices will reflect broader values and priorities. Do they prioritize modern living and economic growth through infrastructure, or do they cherish the traditional bucolic landscape that fosters community and sustains Wisconsin's agricultural prowess? This deeply divides Wisconsin's electorate, creating a microcosm of more significant national debates on land use, rural identity, and the future direction of community development.
Wisconsin's rural communities are experiencing notable demographic changes intricately linked to evolving political preferences. The state's traditionally close-knit rural areas are witnessing a gradual shift in population dynamics. Senior citizens, often more conservative, constitute a significant portion of the populace in these areas. However, younger generations increasingly move to urban centers, seeking opportunities and more progressive lifestyles. This migration has potential implications for voting trends, as it might dilute rural Wisconsin's traditionally conservative stronghold. Moreover, Wisconsin's rural landscape is slowly embracing cultural diversity. A growing presence of Hispanic and other minority groups, drawn by employment opportunities in agriculture and dairy farming, has the potential to sway the political balance. These communities often lean towards more progressive policies, focusing on immigration reform and inclusive economic growth. As these demographic shifts continue, political campaigns must recognize the nuanced preferences of an evolving electorate. Candidates must address issues that resonate with the older conservative base and younger, more diverse voters. This dynamic could be pivotal in determining Wisconsin's political orientation in the upcoming election, making the state an intriguing bellwether for national trends.
Wisconsin stands at a crossroads that extends far beyond its borders. America's dairy state's choice will echo through the halls of governance and resonate in agriculture nationwide. Setting a precedent for farming states, Wisconsin's decision carries weight because it embodies the struggles and triumphs of farming communities everywhere. This swing state could provide a template for states with similar agricultural backbones. If voters support policies that bolster small-scale farming or advocate for emerging agricultural technologies, neighboring states in the Midwest could follow suit. The reverberations of such a precedent could energize reformist movements aiming to prioritize rural America's needs and spotlight agriculture as a cornerstone of political platforms. Influencing national trends. Wisconsin's vote is instrumental in defining national agricultural discourse. With each farmer's choice at the ballots, there's a possibility of steering federal agricultural policies towards sustainability and resilience. Decisions made here could shift how the fiscal budget addresses farm subsidies, conservation programs, environmental protections, or innovations in farming. When America's Dairyland takes its stand, the message sent influences how lawmakers in Washington craft future legislation encompassing economic support and ecological stewardship in agriculture. Broader economic impact. Beyond symbolism, Wisconsin's electoral outcomes will have tangible impacts on the U.S. economy and food supply chain. Agricultural policies that emerge due to these elections will chart the course for the nationwide pricing and availability of produce, critical factors impacting consumer wallets from coast to coast. The state's agricultural vote may well dictate the funding and focus of initiatives meant to stabilize market fluctuations, address climate impacts, and ensure robust domestic food production. The stakes in the dairy state are high, and Wisconsin's choices this November can potentially shape America's agrarian future and, by extension, its national priorities. As such, eyes across the nation are turning towards Wisconsin, gauging its role as both a bellwether and a builder of the country's path forward.
As the election draws closer, the contrasting agricultural policies of the Trump and Harris-Walz campaigns present a critical choice for dairy farmers in Wisconsin. These policies can potentially shape the future of America's dairyland, and understanding their nuances is crucial for farmers navigating economic challenges in an ever-changing landscape. Trump's agricultural policies, subsidies. Trump has proposed continuing robust financial aid packages for farmers, following his previous administration's allocation of $28 billion in trade aid designed to counteract the negative impacts of tariffs. Trade agreements. His campaign is committed to renegotiating trade agreements to protect American agricultural interests. He particularly emphasizes fair trade practices that promise to benefit dairy farmers by increasing exports. Environmental regulations. Trump aims to reduce federal regulatory burdens on farmers, advocating for more lenient environmental regulations to streamline farming operations and reduce costs. The New York Times. Harris-Walz's agricultural policies, subsidies. The Harris-Walz campaign has emphasized sustainable farming, proposing subsidies that incentivize environmentally friendly practices and technologies to help small and medium-sized dairy farms thrive in the long term. Agriculture.com. Trade agreements. Harris-Walz advocates for restoring and strengthening trade alliances that were weakened under previous administrations to open new dairy export markets and stabilize producers' prices. Environmental regulations. Their campaign emphasizes strengthening environmental regulations and ensuring agricultural practices align with aggressive climate goals, which could increase farmers' operational costs. Dairy farmers are facing a pivotal decision. These policies present divergent paths between immediate cost relief and longer-term sustainability. The election's outcome will signal which direction Wisconsin, potentially the nation, will steer the agricultural industry.
As we inch closer to the election, the current polls in Wisconsin paint a picture of a deeply divided and pivotal state. Recent surveys indicate a contentious race, with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris both vying for the crucial swing votes in America's Dairyland. According to a recent poll conducted by the Marquette Law School, the candidate preference is almost evenly split among likely voters, with Trump holding a slight edge at 48% to Harris's 47%. Meanwhile, rural voters, particularly those in agriculture, strongly support Trump, primarily driven by his previous aid programs. In contrast, urban areas grappling with housing issues seem to lean towards Harris's promises of development and reform. As political analysts observe, these numbers reflect Wisconsin's consistent penchant for unpredictability in the electoral arena.
Reflecting on Wisconsin's complex political landscape, we've seen how deeply intertwined its agricultural roots and political identity have become. The tug-of-war between preserving family farms and embracing industrial agriculture symbolizes broader national debates. As a crucial swing state, Wisconsin's choices are often bellwethers for broader American political shifts. These dynamics will undoubtedly influence the 2024 election, potentially impacting agriculture and policy nationwide. With such pivotal stakes, we're curious how Wisconsin's unique challenges will shape its political leanings this election season. Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's discuss America's dairy industry and its crucial role in the upcoming election. Your insights could illuminate new perspectives on these pressing issues.
Thank you for tuning in to the Bullvine Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's insightful discussion. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Catch you next time on the Bullvine Podcast, where bovine expertise and community come together.